The missing 411 disappearances in national parks. In the vast and rugged wilderness of America's national parks, where towering mountains meet endless forests, and crystal-clear lakes reflect the heavens, there exists an unsettling mystery, a series of unexplained disappearances that have haunted these natural wonders for decades. These are not ordinary vanishings, but cases that defy logic and reason, where people seemingly vanish without a trace, and where the circumstances surrounding their disappearances often lead to more questions than answers. This phenomenon has come to be known as Missing 411. The beginning of the mystery. It was in the early 2000s that an investigative journalist named David Paulides first stumbled upon the strange pattern of disappearances while researching a different topic. Paulides, a former law enforcement officer, was captivated by the number of missing persons cases in America's national parks, many of which had no clear explanation. What struck him as particularly unusual were the eerie similarities between these cases. How people often vanished in the blink of an eye, sometimes in broad daylight, in areas that had been thoroughly searched, and how, in many cases, the search efforts turned up nothing but silence. As Paulides dug deeper, he discovered that there were thousands of unsolved disappearances that occurred within national parks and remote wilderness areas, cases that had been dismissed or overlooked by authorities. Some victims were found alive, but their accounts of what happened were often contradictory or impossible to believe. Others were never seen again, leaving behind only the faintest trace of their existence, a single footprint, a forgotten article of clothing, or a backpack with no one around it. In 2012, Paulides published his findings in a book titled Missing 411, which detailed dozens of disappearances from across the United States. His work quickly gained attention and spurred more questions than answers. What was happening in these national parks? Why were people vanishing, seemingly without reason? Was there a sinister force at work, or were these simply tragic accidents that had been misunderstood over time? The strange patterns. As Paulides continued his research, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. The disappearances often occurred in clusters, at specific locations, during certain seasons, and under specific circumstances. One of the most bizarre and unsettling aspects of the cases was how many of the missing people were young children, often under the age of 10. Some of these children would vanish in mere seconds, often from the sight of their families, only to reappear days later, miles away, in perfect health but unable to recall where they had been. There were also cases where people would vanish on well-traveled trails, in areas that had already been searched multiple times. In some instances, rescue dogs and search teams would be unable to find any sign of the missing person, only for their bodies to be discovered later in areas that had been previously combed. These mysterious reappearances often defied logic, leaving investigators baffled. Perhaps the most eerie cases involved entire groups of people vanishing without a trace. Hikers, campers, and families would suddenly disappear in the middle of their trips, and despite the efforts of hundreds of searchers, no evidence of their whereabouts would be found. Some of these cases even involved highly trained search and rescue teams, who were baffled when they failed to uncover any clues. In many of these disappearances, there were no signs of struggle, no indication that the missing person had been attacked or harmed. Their belongings would often be left behind, a dropped backpack, a piece of clothing, as though they had vanished into thin air. What was even more strange was that in some cases, when the victims were found, they had no memory of their time missing. Children would return, disoriented, but unable to remember the details of their ordeal. Others would report strange sensations or feelings during their disappearance, like hearing voices or experiencing a strange fog that seemed to envelop them. The theories and speculation as the missing 411 cases mounted, several theories emerged to explain the mysterious disappearances. Some believed that wildlife, such as mountain lions, wolves, or even bears, were responsible for the disappearances, attacking hikers and dragging them into remote areas. But these explanations did not account for the strange circumstances, such as the total lack of physical evidence or the inexplicable reappearances of some victims. Others pointed to foul play, suggesting that some disappearances were the work of serial killers who preyed on unsuspecting travelers in the wilderness. While this was a possibility, there were too many cases where no human involvement could be established. In many instances, authorities found no signs of criminal activity, such as footprints, weapons, or signs of struggle. Some suggested that the disappearances might be linked to paranormal or supernatural forces. Could there be something lurking in the forests, something beyond human comprehension, that was taking people from their campsites and hiking trails? Tales of mysterious creatures, lights in the sky, and inexplicable phenomena had long been associated with these national parks, from the eerie glow of the Marfa lights in Texas to the mysterious disappearances in places like the Great Smoky Mountains or Yosemite. The idea of an unknown, possibly even supernatural, force seemed to resonate with many. Some spoke of strange energies in the land, ancient forces that had been in the wilderness long before humanity ever set foot in these parks. Others speculated that people were being taken by alien beings or otherworldly entities. The sense of a great, untold mystery lurking in the vast, untamed landscape was captivating. However, one of the more down-to-earth and chilling theories is that the national parks themselves may hide hidden dangers, vast areas that are not as well mapped as they seem. These unexplored and rugged regions might contain cliffs, caves, or other natural hazards that are difficult to locate and often impossible to survive in. But again, these theories did not explain the many cases where no physical traces of the missing person could be found, or where the victims themselves seemed to return with strange and fragmented memories. The search for answers, the cases continued to pile up. Paulides' investigation into these disappearances became an obsession. His subsequent books, Missing 411, The Hunted and Missing 411, A Sobering Coincidence, explored these patterns even further, delving into the anomalies that seemed to suggest a larger, darker mystery. Yet, despite his best efforts and the efforts of law enforcement and search teams, the vast majority of these cases remained unsolved. In the meantime, the public continued to be fascinated by the Missing 411 phenomenon. Some families of the missing were left to wonder whether their loved ones had been taken by something far beyond the realm of explanation. They sought answers, but the search for answers often proved frustrating and ultimately inconclusive. Some believed that the government, or even certain organizations, knew more about the disappearances than they were willing to admit. Was there something being hidden from the public, something that those in power did not want the world to know? The very secrecy surrounding the cases only added to the aura of mystery and suspicion. The legacy of Missing 411. As the years passed, the Missing 411 phenomenon became a part of national park lore. Campers, hikers, and visitors to America's most iconic wilderness areas couldn't help but wonder whether they, too, might disappear without a trace. The idea that something dark and mysterious could be lurking just beyond the reach of the search teams kept the mystery alive. The Missing 411 cases, whether caused by natural, human, or supernatural forces, remain one of the most perplexing and unnerving mysteries of our time. For every theory that emerges, there is always a counter-theory. For every piece of evidence uncovered, there are questions that remain unanswered. The national parks, beautiful and tranquil as they are, continue to hide their secrets, and the missing continue to haunt the wilderness. In the end, Missing 411 is not just about the disappearances themselves, but the unsettling feeling that perhaps we will never fully understand what happened to those who vanished in the vast, untamed wilderness. The mystery endures, beckoning those brave enough, or foolish enough, to venture into the wild unknown. The call for further investigation. Despite the mounting cases of disappearance, the mainstream media and law enforcement agencies have been largely reluctant to address the growing questions raised by the Missing 411 phenomenon. Many of these disappearances remain cold cases, unsolved and unexplained. The difficulty of investigating these incidents is compounded by the vast, remote nature of national parks, where hundreds of miles of wilderness can stretch without clear trails or markers. In these areas, a search operation can feel like trying to find a needle in a haystack, especially when the person has vanished without a trace. David Paulides, who has become a prominent advocate for raising awareness about these cases, insists that there is something far more sinister at play than mere accidents or ordinary disappearances. His books and documentaries continue to gain a dedicated following, especially among those who believe that there's a larger, hidden conspiracy involving the government, national park officials, or other unknown parties. These individuals argue that there are cover-ups regarding the true nature of these cases and that the authorities are too eager to label them as unsolved, rather than investigate deeper into what they suspect may be deliberate, and even unnatural, forces at play. In his ongoing efforts, Paulides has also explored the possibility of hidden patterns among the disappearances. In many cases, the people who go missing seem to share certain characteristics. They may have been near or around a water source, a particular type of terrain, or even a specific geographic location. The fact that certain locations are repeated over time suggests that there could be a particular hotspot for these disappearances, though authorities have not yet established a clear link between these factors. Many families of the missing individuals have begun to form their own network, trying to make sense of what happened to their loved ones. Some have even theorized that these disappearances could be part of something larger, a series of tragic events that might be connected by an ancient or supernatural force, one that has been hidden in plain sight for centuries. Some families have taken matters into their own hands, continuing their search for their loved ones in defiance of the limited help they receive from authorities. A growing concern, the growing public interest in missing 411 has prompted national park authorities to issue warnings for visitors. However, the warnings, often generic and vague, fall short of explaining the true nature of the disappearances or the underlying mystery surrounding them. Hikers, campers, and nature lovers continue to frequent these parks, many unaware of the risks that may lie just beyond the next bend in the trail. Despite the warnings, the number of people disappearing each year seems to remain consistent. Yet, for many, the absence of clear answers has led to further speculation. Could there be a hidden network of people or organizations responsible for these vanishings, operating just under the radar? Or is it possible that some kind of unknown entity, whether a dangerous predator, a spiritual force, or something more incomprehensible, is targeting these remote locations? Could there be something in these parks, something ancient and powerful, that is luring people to their doom? Some conspiracy theorists have pointed to the fact that many of the disappearances are clustered in certain areas, such as Yosemite, the Great Smoky Mountains, or the Adirondacks. These are not random spots but places with rich histories, where mysterious events have been documented for centuries. Local legends often speak of strange occurrences, lost civilizations, and dark forces hiding in the wilderness, stories that seem to intertwine with the eerie pattern of disappearances. Could it be that the land itself has secrets that modern society is not equipped to understand? The role of technology as search efforts continue. New technologies are being used in an attempt to shed light on these mysterious disappearances. Drones equipped with infrared cameras are now routinely deployed in search operations, providing aerial views of difficult-to-reach terrain. GPS tracking devices, advanced search and rescue methods, and infrared imaging all promise to make searches more effective. Yet, despite these advancements, many disappearances remain unsolved. One particular case that has fueled conspiracy theories is the disappearance of an experienced hiker who was known for his meticulous preparation. His last known location was at the edge of a densely forested area, and his body was found miles away, on the other side of a river that had been searched multiple times. Authorities could not explain how he could have traversed such a difficult terrain without leaving a single sign of his movement. This case, among others, has only deepened the mystery surrounding the missing 411 phenomenon. It has led many to believe that there is something more to these disappearances than meets the eye, perhaps something beyond human understanding. The rise of social media has also made these disappearances more widely discussed, with communities of amateur sleuths and true crime enthusiasts diving deep into the evidence, trying to uncover new leads. Many online forums and platforms are filled with posts and comments about the missing people and the bizarre circumstances surrounding their vanishing acts. Some online detectives have speculated that certain disappearances may be linked to larger, hidden patterns of criminal activity, including human trafficking, while others continue to argue that the key to understanding missing 411 lies in uncovering the mysteries of the wilderness itself. The dark possibilities as the mystery of missing 411 deepens, some have begun to entertain darker and more fantastical possibilities. Could there be some kind of unknown creature stalking the wilderness, one that has eluded capture by modern science? Accounts of strange lights, unearthly sounds, and eerie sightings of cryptid-like creatures have swirled around certain national parks for years, adding fuel to the fire. Bigfoot sightings in the Pacific Northwest, mysterious creatures in the Smoky Mountains, and the inexplicable disappearances of entire groups of people seem to suggest that there are phenomena occurring in these parks that we cannot fully comprehend. These theories, though largely dismissed by the scientific community, continue to captivate the imagination of those intrigued by the unexplained. Others point to the possibility of interdimensional phenomena, with some suggesting that these disappearances could be the result of people unknowingly slipping into a parallel world, lost in another dimension. With so many instances where the vanished return without clear memory of their time away, some wonder if there is more to the world than meets the eye, if there are hidden realms beyond the physical world we know. Conclusion. A continuing enigma, the missing 411 phenomenon remains one of the most perplexing mysteries of our time. The disappearances continue to baffle law enforcement, families, and curious minds alike. Despite advances in technology and extensive search efforts, the questions surrounding these strange vanishings persist, with no clear answers in sight. Each new case adds to the ever-growing list of unanswered questions, and with each unanswered mystery, the fascination only deepens. For those who have lost loved ones in the national parks, the search for answers is personal, and it is a search that never truly ends. The forests, mountains, and rivers that make up the national parks have long been places of both beauty and danger, and the disappearances tied to these landscapes only add to their mystery. As new generations continue to visit these wild spaces, the question remains: what is it that takes people from the safety of the trails and into the unknown, where even the best searchers cannot find them? As the missing 411 mystery endures, the wilderness remains a place of both awe and fear, where the answer to what happened to the missing may never be fully understood. The truth, whether it is a matter of chance, human error, or something far more sinister, may always be just out of reach. But the stories of the vanished, and the mystery surrounding their disappearance, will continue to haunt the woods for years to come. The search for closure. Despite the many years that have passed, the families of those lost in the missing 411 cases continue to search for answers. The unanswered questions and the absence of closure have left deep emotional scars. For many, the notion that their loved ones might have simply disappeared into thin air, vanishing without a trace, without a reason, is too unsettling to accept. It leaves them in a limbo, constantly searching for a sign, a clue, a piece of evidence that could finally explain what happened. In the face of these lingering mysteries, some families have turned to other means of finding resolution. They've sought out spiritual mediums, hired independent investigators, and even formed support groups to share their experiences and theories. The uncertainty has forged a bond among them, as they navigate the agony of not knowing whether their loved ones are alive, dead, or lost in a way that cannot be explained by conventional means. Many of these families have also become vocal advocates for the investigation into these disappearances. Some have spoken out against what they perceive as the lack of urgency or transparency in the official investigations. They question why certain disappearances were quickly written off as accidents or misadventures, when the circumstances seemed so bizarre and unlike typical wilderness mishaps. These families continue to press for more thorough investigations into the patterns surrounding these disappearances, hoping that by shining a light on them, they can inspire action and bring about real answers. The overwhelming silence from authorities only fuels further frustration. While there are occasional reports or articles about missing people in national parks, the cases often disappear from the public's consciousness as quickly as they arise. It's a tragic and haunting reality for those still left with questions, for the family members who are left to wonder if their loved ones simply wandered off, fell victim to something sinister, or became part of an enigma that defies logical explanation. The national parks, a paradox of beauty and danger for the millions of visitors who flock to America's national parks each year. The idea that something mysterious or dangerous could be lurking in the wilderness often seems far-fetched. National parks are advertised as some of the safest places to connect with nature, to hike, camp, and explore the wonders of the natural world. The serenity of these landscapes, with their breathtaking views and pristine environments, often contrasts starkly with the unsettling stories of people vanishing from these very places. The beauty of these parks can obscure the potential dangers hidden within them. The terrain can be unforgiving, with unpredictable weather, treacherous landscapes, and the potential for getting lost or injured. But the missing 411 cases go beyond the typical risks of hiking in the wilderness. It's not simply about people getting lost or succumbing to accidents. These cases seem to involve disappearances that occur under circumstances that shouldn't be possible, under circumstances where all the usual factors like weather, wildlife, or human error don't fully explain what happened. The question arises: is there something inherent about the national parks themselves that makes them more dangerous than they appear? Is there a darker side to these locations, something hidden beneath their surface that we are yet to understand? Some suggest that the parks could be sites of spiritual significance or ancient energy, which may be attracting or ensnaring those who wander into their depths. There's a long-standing history of local myths and legends that speak of creatures, spirits, or forces in the wild that humans cannot comprehend. Could these tales be more than just folklore? Others point to the possibility that the sheer vastness and complexity of these parks make it too easy for people to slip through the cracks. Despite efforts by law enforcement and search teams, many areas within these parks remain unexplored, remote, and difficult to navigate. Search and rescue operations can only cover so much ground, and in certain conditions, it's easy for a person to be overlooked or lost forever. In this sense, the national parks, while magnificent, may also represent the fine line between human control and the overwhelming power of nature. A reminder that, despite our best efforts, there are places in this world that are still wild and unpredictable, where the rules of civilization and logic do not always apply. New leads and continuing theories over the years. New theories and leads continue to emerge, some more plausible than others. While many still believe that natural causes or criminal activity are the most likely explanations for some of these disappearances, there are others who suggest that something far more unusual may be at play. For example, some theorists argue that the disappearances are connected to underground networks, hidden societies, illegal operations, or even cults that use the national parks as a place to abduct individuals. These groups could be operating in the shadows, far from the public eye, taking advantage of the vast wilderness to cover their tracks. While no concrete evidence has ever been found to support this idea, it remains a popular theory among some who are desperate to explain the sheer number of unexplained vanishings. On a more speculative note, some have pointed to the idea of time slips or dimensional rifts. According to this theory, some of the disappearances might involve people accidentally crossing into parallel dimensions or alternate realities. Stories of people who return from these disappearances with fragmented memories or strange experiences fit into this narrative, suggesting that they may have crossed into an alternate realm that is hard to comprehend. Perhaps the most chilling theory to emerge is the suggestion that there are forces in the wilderness, not always physical, but perhaps energetic or paranormal in nature, that are selecting people for disappearance. These forces may be tied to the land itself, or to some unknown force that lies beyond human understanding. It's an idea that has captivated the imaginations of many, especially those who are intrigued by the idea of supernatural occurrences. Could there be something hidden in the wilderness, waiting for the right person to wander too far off the beaten path? The haunting question as each year passes, and more cases are added to the missing 411 list, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the mystery is far from over. People continue to vanish in America's national parks, and despite all of the theories, investigations, and searches, we remain without a definitive answer. The national parks continue to be both places of refuge and places of mystery, with each disappearance adding another layer to the eerie tapestry of the wilderness. For those who are fascinated by the unexplained, the missing 411 phenomenon will remain a source of intrigue and speculation. It is a reminder that there are still mysteries in the world that cannot be easily solved, and that sometimes, the answer may be far stranger, and far darker, than we can imagine. For the families left behind, the pain of the unknown never truly fades. The wilderness that once promised peace and escape now serves as a silent reminder of the loved ones who are no longer there. Whether they have been lost to the wilderness, to something far more sinister, or to a mystery that transcends our understanding, Their disappearances continue to haunt the national parks, waiting for the answers that may never come. And so, the question remains: what really happened to the missing? What lies hidden in the heart of the wilderness, in the shadows of the trees and the depths of the forests, that continues to claim those who venture too far? The world may never know, but the mystery of missing 411 will undoubtedly continue to stir the imagination, and leave us wondering if some answers are simply too dark to reveal.